Well, good afternoon, everybody. So excited to be here today. I must say this is something that is near and dear to my heart because I am a confessed bookworm. So I'm so excited that we have this amazing nonprofit here today. And our special guest, Jessica Payne, she's the executive director of Kids Need to Read. You're going to love this today. So Jessica, first I want to welcome you and thank you so much for being here today.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me.
And I know you are a former teacher, so it makes sense that this would be something that you are very passionate about.
Yeah.
And I thought go ahead, please.
Oh, sorry. I taught for 15 years high school English, which was basically, here, take this book and read it.
Now, before we dive into the amazing stuff that your organization does, I thought it would be great if you could share a little perspective. Why is it important for kids and for people generally to read? What is the impact of that long term?
Okay, well, it's hard sometimes because those of us that like to read are like, no, duh, of course everybody should read. But reading is so important and it's in so many different aspects of our lives. It's in our social media. It's in our health and wellness and our well-being. It's in our jobs. And I find sometimes I meet people that are like, oh, I don't like to read or I'm not a reader. And what they really mean is I'm not a fiction reader. And that's okay. It's important to understand that we read a lot throughout the day. And people, as children especially, who grow up not doing that reading, not having that progress, what's the word I want? that ability to read, that practice in reading, that comfort in reading, they don't do as well. Good readers, those are the people that are active in our communities. Those are the people that vote. Those are the people that create good, strong, positive change. And it is important that we foster that skill, that we support that skill, that we encourage that skill in our children so that our next generations and the generations and more beyond us are successful with life. Good readers, you know, they move forward. They have good jobs. They may not all be doctors and lawyers, but they are tradespeople. They're active in the community. There are teachers, and they are the people that, you know, make the society go forward and move forward. And Fabulous. We need more of those people.
We do. We certainly do. So, you know, with all of that being said, there are times where children are not getting access to books. So could you take a minute and explain what the organization is and how it all started? Yeah. That would be great.
Okay, so I have to go back a little bit. When I first started teaching close to almost 20 years ago, I grew up with access to libraries. There were libraries in my school. There was a library 2 blocks away from my house. I had books coming out my ears. And I thought coming in as a teacher, that was true for everybody. And it's not. And then it breaks my heart to this day when I find that, like, I walked into my very first classroom and my principal was in the process of throwing away the library because nobody ever used it, because the teachers weren't there, didn't know how to integrate books into the curriculum. Now, granted, I was working at a charter school and it was very small and all of the books were not in good quality, but over 4 years, I was able to build a really useful library to make sure all my kids had access. And then I learned as I went through the years that my experience, my personal experience of always having access to books was actually pretty rare. Even today in 2021, sorry, I'm shaking the screen, getting excited. 6 out of 10 children in low-income families have zero access to books outside of school.
6 out of 10?
Zero. 6 out of 10.
Crazy.
So can you imagine? Like, you go home and there is nothing to read except for your phone. And that's assuming you have Wi-Fi. That's assuming you have access to social media. a lot of administrators and people in the past have said, well, they can just go to the library. Well, think about it though. This past year, libraries have been closed.
Yes.
And oftentimes, even before then, it was a matter of, do you have money to even get to the library? Because unless you're hoofing it, it costs money, especially here in the cities. It just, and then, you know, so the libraries were closed, and when they started to open, it was, well, you can order your book online and then go pick up the books. Well, do they have time to do that? You know, mom and dad, they're sometimes working 2 or 3 jobs, and
Sure.
that leaves the kid without any access. So especially this past year, as working as executive director and 4 Kids Need to Read, I was getting a lot of teachers that were calling me, just, you know, especially younger teachers, flabbergasted. I tried to ask my kids to practice their reading at home and they have nothing. And so I was giving out books left, right, and center so that teachers could make sure their kids at least had a book at home.
That's crazy.
And
yeah.
I mean, this past year has been so eye-opening to me. It's almost like my very first year of teaching, of realizing it really brings home kids don't always have that access, and how easy it is to take the privilege of reading for granted.
It's amazing because, you know, there's things that we do take for granted. And I think COVID exposed a lot of it. So, you know, you do have this amazing program, and tell us about what you do. And I know, yeah, let's jump into that part.
You're going to let me tell? All right. Okay. So Kids Need to Read. So I started with Kids Need to Read as a volunteer, and then I was board member. And then about the time I kind of hit the wall with teaching, and I was looking around, what can I do that still integrates my passions for service and reading? And I was like, well, they need me here. So here I am. And we have 3 programs that allow us to serve the entire United States and its territories.
Now, just to stop for 1 minute, you are located in Arizona. I don't think we mentioned
we're located in Mesa, Arizona. So we just have the 1 location right now. Hopefully, maybe in another 5-10 years or so, we'll expand out. But right now, I can do so much with so little. I only got like 3 employees. So, so yeah, we have 3 programs. Our first program is the Grow Your Library program, which serves rural libraries across the country, mostly in the central Midwest part of the country, but they also have gone out towards the coast too. And that's actually run by a couple of our board directors, Gary and Tina Mlodzik. And what they do is, the first thing they do is they identify a rural library, you know, make sure that they are people that need help. And they send them a huge infusion of children's books.
That's awesome.
About 600 books, which equals about 10 boxes. And trust me, they are heavy. And then the next thing they do is they actually make a trip out there, and they do a story time to invite the kids to see the new books. They talk to the kids. The kids all leave with a highlights magazine and a book.
Nice.
And then they have this final part where they also give each of the kids a postcard with a special email address on it, and invite the children and their families to email us through this email address a book that they would like to see in their library for future generations. And so the kids will say, hi, my name is Johnny. I'm 5 or 6 or whatever. I really like books about trucks. I'd like to see more books about trucks. And Tina will do the research, and they will order a book about trucks that the library doesn't have and send it to the library. And I got to show you this picture. You're going to love this.
Oh, please do.
So hold on just a sec here. Oh, wrong one. There we go. So this was in 2019. This was Sholo, Arizona. And this young man right here, this is Windsor. And I remember him this day. He was so excited about all of the books. In fact, he wanted a chapter book, and he recognized Carmen Sandiego from the TV. And so his mom was going to read him that chapter book. He was super excited about it. Well, a couple of months ago, I got another email from his mom with these pictures here. This is Windsor about a year later with the book that he asked for. He loved PJ Masks. He wrote in his email, "My name is Windsor and I love PJ Masks." And so we found a PJ Masks book that Show Low Library didn't have. It got the sticker in it says donated in honor of Windsor from through Grow Your Library. And so he has, now he found that book and his mom said he was so excited that he helped to grow the library, to give the library an extra good book, according to her. So it was just, it was, when I saw these pictures, because I was actually at this giveaway because it was in Arizona, so I got to go.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And I remember this kid. He was just so excited about all of the books. He kept going, look, look, look. And that enthusiasm was so infectious. All of the kids were excited, of course, that day. And so that brings me to our second program, which is also out of country or out of state. Mm-hmm. And it's our From Our Shelves to Your program. And basically what it is if I can't drive, I've got to ship those books. So I'm going to load them off of my shelves into a box and I'm going to send them to your shelves. And this is a Russian Orthodox town that is in Alaska. Wow. So even though they're all US citizens, obviously, the culture is Russian Orthodox, and all of these kids that you see pictured here, they speak Russian at home. They don't speak English. So they come to school having to learn English. And the teacher wrote to me and said, we don't really get a whole lot of libraries that you see in the bottom part of the picture there. That is their library.
That's everything right there.
Yeah, and these kids don't have a lot of exposure to the outside world. And we need books that not only interest them, but also show them that there's a world beyond, and I can't pronounce it, but I think it's Razdolna in Alaska. There's a world beyond Alaska. And so I sent them like 4 or 5 boxes, and she said the kids were over the moon. They were so excited because I sent books for, this was just for one class. I think it was 4th or 5th graders, but I sent books for the whole age range from pre-kindergarten to 8th grade.
You're the best. That is so cute.
Yeah, so that's our second program. And then we have our final program, which is the Page Coach. And I love the Page Coach because we serve ages 0 to 18, and usually a lot of times we just drop the books off, especially with the pandemic. But lately, because things have been lifting a little bit and we've been able to do it safely, we've gotten invited to some back to school nights. And this was Estrella High School in Phoenix, actually Avondale. And it's 100% free and reduced lunch. So every single kid there lives at or below poverty. Wow. And I had the whole table set up ages, even though it's a high school, I had it set up for pre-K all the way up through 18. And this young man right here in the Thrasher shirt, he walked in and like he was yelling, "Oh my gosh, I get to keep these!" And then he comes up to me and he's, being a teenager, all swaggery, and I was like, "So I'm just gonna take everything, okay?" And I said, "Okay." And he stops and he's like, "Wait, are you being real?" I said, "Yes, but let's pick something you'll actually read." And so he ended up with 3 books. And then these young ladies, a lot of the kids in lower incomes, they live in multi-family homes. Sure. Or they have a lot of extended family within their home. And so these ladies here, they live with little brothers and sisters, but also cousins and aunts and uncles and grandparents and such. So I invited them, get what you need for your household. And this young lady, it was funny because she had her mom and her sister, and I asked if I could take a picture, and they said, yep. And then they piled all the books on her and skedaddled out of the room. And she's like, I guess I'm in the picture now. So yeah, she got her pictures. But we don't always just work with schools either. Sometimes I work with food banks and foster care agencies. And so this was actually a back to school day at Black Canyon City Food Bank. which is north of Phoenix. And so the kids all got these PetSmart reading buddies to practice their reading aloud
So
with.
cute.
They got a high five or a highlights magazine. And so we give parent tips to help parents learn how to establish reading habits in home. And then the kids got to choose 2 books from the entire shelf here. You can see all of these books here. And oh my gosh, it was so exciting. Of course, they're always going to be happy to see the reading buddies. But
Yeah.
a lot of the kids, when they saw the books and all the different types of books that they could get, and that I wasn't saying you can only get this book, because, you know, as I often told my students and I tell the kids I serve, good readers read at a variety of levels.
Yeah.
I had kids picking up books that may have been way too high for them, but they were so excited about what they saw on it that they were like, I'm going to try hard. Or I had kids picking up books without shame that were a little lower level that would help maybe bridge to get them into a newer book. So, or into closer to their reading level. So
they walked away with 2 books, a highlight magazine, and a reading buddy. That's so sweet.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I can't even imagine what that means for them.
Oh, well, and see, the thing is when you look at the statistics, you know, kids that have at least 10 books or their own little shelf reading, they tend to stay in school longer. You know,
really?
they'll actually graduate high school. Kids that have home libraries are more likely to go to college or to a good trade school, even if they don't, you know, end up being reading as their number 1 hobby. They're comfortable enough with reading that they stay in school longer.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So you do all this amazing work, and the great thing is that anybody who's watching this can help.
Yes.
So let's talk about, obviously, I'm sure donations are helpful, I would imagine.
Definitely.
No one buys a donation.
Yes.
And it's a nonprofit, so that would be a tax deduction for somebody if they want to donate, correct?
Right. We are a 501c3. So if you make a donation that is like say less than $100, typically we don't send a donation letter, but if you need one, like, you know, give me $20 or whatever, or $10 even, say, hey, you can email me, and you'll tell them my email address, or I'll tell them my email address at the end.
Sure.
But you can email me or even Facebook message me and say, hey, I just made this donation. Can I please get a donation letter? And we send it to you. It's just more a matter of the cutoff number, I think, is 100 legally, and it keeps my assistant from pulling all her hair out for giving out letters for everybody.
But even if somebody can donate $10, it helps with a book, it helps with shipping, it helps with anything, right?
Oh, definitely. We do receive a lot of book donations, but I have to tell you, sometimes I do purchase books. Sometimes I get teachers that, you know, are just like, they need this one specific book. Or in fact, actually, last year I had a teacher who had a very special needs kid, and he loved those If You Give a Mouse a Cookie books.
Oh, those are
and
awesome.
He was missing one particular book.
Oh.
And she said, you know, she told us before we came, you know, if you happen to have this book, we would love it. Well, I went out and purchased that book just for that one kid, because that made their life, you know. They then had the whole set.
Yes.
So, you know, I do purchase books occasionally, but also the money helps keep the lights on and the gas in the Stagecoach and the shipping as well. But we also love receiving books. And there's a couple different ways people can send us books. We do have an Amazon wish list.
Fantastic.
Charity
we'll publish
list.
That. Okay.
Yep.
Great.
We will publish that. Or you can just email me for the direct link. That helps too. But I also love, people can just order on Amazon and send to us. And I love that, because it's always amazing to see the books that people will choose. I admittedly have read a lot, but I don't know everything. And I'm just one person. It's hard for me sometimes because I love dragons and unicorns and stuff. And I've known kids like my nephew who would kill me if I gave him yet another dragon or unicorn book. He wants nonfiction, funny books, which are kind of hard to find and I don't have a lot of experience with. So it's always good to get other people's perspectives, to get other people, especially, I love it. I'll get people that'll write me and say, I'm sending you these Nancy Drew books because they were my favorite as a kid. Or I'm sending you Charlotte's Web because it made me cry. And I love that. Or I have parents that'll have their kids choose books and they'll tell me, my kid chose this book. And then I can turn around when I'm at an event and say, I haven't read this one, but this was given to us by somebody who has, and they love this book. You might want to try it. It's nice to have another kid vouch for a book,
Yes, and what a great way to involve people. Like, for example, if, we're in a place in life where our kids do have books, to help them be compassionate and understand that they can help and relate to children that don't have it. So you're getting a great recommendation and you're involving children and teaching them giving habits, which is awesome.
Yeah. It is. My nephew and my niece will when she's a little older, but my nephew just turned 15 and he comes and helps me on the weekends occasionally. He's been to a couple of events and it's fun watching it. He's not a person that enjoys reading as a hobby, though he does it very well. And it's fun watching him with the littler ones. And it's like I saw with those kids at Estrella, it's, very intense. This is a good thing for you to have. You need to have this book. So there's that way to give new books, and then there's a way to give money. And then also, I don't want people to be discouraged when you look around the room and you see, oh, I've got all these used books, because we take those too. We just have to be a little pickier with the used books, and they have to be what I call nearly new condition, which is a little looser than you might think. And you had some examples, I think you were going to show.
Yes, I did bring some, because I think that, especially if you're a parent or a grandparent too, that we all have books sitting around that our kids outgrew. So I've dug around and I found, some things like this, right? Which look pretty good, not in bad condition. And found something like this. That's cute. It's in good condition. And then I found this one and I was like, okay, this one's got a little wear and tear and there's some writing in it, just in the front and, a little bit on the here. And I thought, is that okay? And so, this is something you would take or you would not take?
That is something we would take, but it's right there on that edge. So
right
if the cover were a little worse, I would be worried about it. If it were to the point where there was writing enough, light note taking, I know especially with the older books, is not a bad thing. In fact, sometimes it's helpful. But if you can't read it, then it's not that great. You also have to be careful with some of the dated stuff. Now there's classics, don't get me wrong. Charlotte's Web's not going anywhere. Black Beauty, Black Stallion, they're not going anywhere. They're welcome, they're wanted, because they're still very popular today. But if I've received occasionally some books from the 60s.
Wow. Okay.
Dick and Jane books that aren't like recent reprintings. Those are pushing it. And it's not necessarily because of the content. Please don't get me wrong. The content is still good. And I recognize and even admire the memories still attached to them. It's the fact that the books, when they're opened, will start to fall apart. You know how children treat books.
Yes.
And sometimes with those older vintage books, it might be better to try them with a used bookseller before you try giving them to a kid like the ones I served, where they're just going to kind of look at it and go, it's not Diary of a Wimpy Kid.
So to recap then, what works would be books that look like they're in pretty good condition, anything current. And if the book is not ripped, if the cover's ripped, you don't want it.
Right.
If it's someone's written their name on it or something like that, that's okay if it's in decent condition. And then the other distinction we talked about, because I'm going to go ripping through and get a whole bunch more to send over to you, is that older books that are classic versus an older, maybe sci-fi book where it's really outdated. So, this, like the Black Stallion, that story goes forever and ever and ever. But if it's some story about space or technology and it was written 30 years ago, it might seem a little bit weird in this day and age.
Yeah. Like some of the, we received some Andre Norton books
Mhm.
And also you have to be careful too, because some of them have some cultural references in them that aren't necessarily kosher anymore these days.
Gotcha.
So
Yes.
you gotta be careful with that as well. But yeah,
Nothing
for the most part,
divisive, right? Nothing politically divisive
right.
or
Oh,
anything
yes. So
controversial.
with nonfiction too, that's especially important with the terms of dated material. So if you're giving us like historical books or whatever, like, or even a biography like about Sarah Palin, so long as it is unbiased, straight, just the facts. And this is mostly because these books go mostly to to teachers' libraries. So a lot of teachers are not comfortable or are not even able to have politically decisive books. Also, science and history, even sometimes, I know it feels weird, history material does get dated. I mean, if you think about it, how many times has Russia changed shape and size?
Quite
I'm
a
not even
few.
quite sure what we're supposed to call the continental mass that we used to identify as Russia.
Yes.
And so that's something to think about too, is the material that you want to donate, is it kind of dated? Is encyclopedias and textbooks are definitely also a no. We can't
Yes.
accept those.
Now, if people want to, it's fabulous. You declutter your house and you help
Yes.
somebody at the same time. It's a double win. So if someone wants to do that, though, we should talk about shipping, because there
Yes.
is a way that you can do it that is not expensive. Out here, I'm on the East Coast, and on the East Coast, we call it media mail. And I think you
Mhm.
mentioned there were a couple other names for it around the country.
Yeah, so I've had some donors, they will say library rate, or
Library,
sometimes even just book rate.
book
So
rate.
those are the three I have heard it called: media mail, library rate, or book rate. And that makes it much, much cheaper to send to us than if you just did like one of those one size fits all prices, UPS or even FedEx.
So if you go through UPS, FedEx, or the general mail process, the weight of it, of your package, will determine the expense. But if you go through media mail, book rate, library rate, all that stuff, when you go to the post office, if you want to make a donation of books, that will reduce it incredibly.
Mm-hmm. I think it's because they do just rate flat, like a flat, this is how much you pay per pound. Versus the others, the more traditional mailing, they also look at the dimension and shape of your package as well.
Fantastic.
So,
And
yeah.
if somebody wants to donate books, the same rule applies. If it's over $100, they'll automatically get a deduction and a receipt for a tax deduction. And if they want to get one and it's less than that, they can reach out to you and get that as well. Okay,
And
great.
one thing I am going to ask too is, if you're sending me boxes of books, and thank you so much for doing that, if you could, in the box, put your name and address that I can mail your letter to, because oftentimes the outside of the box gets scuffed up and it can be very hard to read who it came from. And so then we end up with boxes of books and we're like, who did it come from? I don't know. And unless somebody emails me directly and says, hey, I sent 50 books. And even then, sometimes I'm guessing, okay, it might have been from that box, or it might have been that box. We'll just split the difference.
Well, also, you let me peek at your setup there, and there's just boxes and boxes, because fortunately, in addition to people like us helping, there are publishers and authors that send you things too. So I can only imagine sorting through all that would be a heck of a lot of work.
It is. It can be.
Well,
I'm very, very grateful for my manager, my warehouse manager.
Well, I'm very grateful that you do this. As a kid, when I grew up, my mom was not big into television, so I used to read all the time, and I love reading. And when my son was tiny, I used to sit him on my lap and read to him. So, we're book geeks here. And I think that there is something fantastic about reading, whether it is a fiction story that sucks you in or something you want to learn about. There is magic in being able to engage in something like that. And it's so much better for the brain than television. Nickel opinion thrown in there at the end. So for all of you who are watching this, if you are watching this on YouTube, we will post the information for Kids Need to Read, for also how you can go ahead and donate. And can we include your email? That would be okay?
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. And if you happen to be watching this through the Facebook group that accompanies everything, then you can actually reach out to Jessica and contact her right through our Facebook group. So Jessica, I want to thank you so much for being here today and for the awesome work you're doing to put those big smiles on those cute little faces out there.
Thank you.
Really appreciate your organization, and I'll be packing up a box and sending to you right away. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I can't wait to see them.
And everybody watching is, please go through your house. You got to have one book, 0 to 18. If you're a parent or a grandparent, find something and let's just make our house a little neater. And that's a great way to look at it if you're not motivated on your own. But the real thing is to help empower a child to be confident and a contributing member of society like she talked about. So thank you again. And we'll be sending you books and we look forward to talking with you in the future. Thank you so much, Jessica.
Bye.
Take care.